Well, howdy folks, welcome back to the channel. We're still working on getting the paint job done on old Private Parts here. And it's not just a simple paint job, but you know, we're fixing some issues. Obviously we started 2 episodes ago with 2 videos ago with getting the Bondo removed. And you know, we've done that. And we've got a good coat of primer on in the spots that needed primer, but we got some body work that I can't ignore. Some rust out spots that have to be repaired and things like that. So let's show you what we're going to get done. All right, we're going to start out with this spot right here. This spot was rusted through, and I went and tried to get this welded up, and this material is just so thin right here that it is continued to just blew out. I couldn't turn the welder down far enough to get that fixed. The other thing we're going to do is this spot right here is missing the bracket to hold the nose of the shovel. So we have another bracket, and we're going to go ahead and weld that on, and then hopefully after that gets done, we can go ahead and start getting some color put on old Private Parts here. All right, we moved old Private Parts into the shop mainly because we get a little bit of an afternoon breeze here. If I'm going to be doing any welding, I need to make sure the shielding gas doesn't get blown away. Now what we have here is we've got our little piece that we cut out of the the other's vehicle earlier this morning. Now before any of you guys say, oh, don't cut up, then ruin that piece of history and this, that vehicle that I cut this off of had been cut in half and had been re-welded, and then they took it out and rolled it, pivoted it on the nose, so the whole front end of the thing is destroyed. That was bought for spare parts, and that's what it's going to be used for. So at any rate, we're going to take this piece here and we're going to lay it right over top of the spot that we need to remove, and we're going to mark it. So we've got it marked where it needs to be approximately cut. Now, this is the part that is going to be difficult for me because I have never done this before. So this is new territory here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut just on the inside of the line, to give me room to go ahead and kind of touch things up, clean it up, and get it so that it's just about a perfect fit. For better or for worse, there it is. Now you can see what kind of a mess I made trying to stitch this up, and this is so thin right here. There was just no way that it was we were gonna be able to fix that. Okay, I think we've just about got it fit. Now comes the fun part, and that's going to be welding it into place. So, yeah, this should be fun. So what we'll end up doing is just starting on one end, we'll just kind of tack it into place, and then, you know, kind of go from there. We're going to have to get this to match everything up, you know, we're going to have to kind of tack up to about here and then tap that down into place. So let's see how this goes. I have never done sheet metal like this before, so I'm hoping I do not make a humongous mess out of this. Well, as is typical, anytime I start a project on this, it always ends up becoming more involved. Let me show you what we have happening here. So down in this area here, it blew through a couple of times, but it's not bad. I can fix that. But up into here, every time, this material is so thin up in here, every time I touch it with the welder, and I even had some brass, a piece of brass here as a backer. All it did was just blow holes in it. I mean, you can see this part right here. I just peeled this up with my hands. So what we're done is we've cut another section. We've cut another piece here, and we're going to go in and we're going to cut here probably about 1/4 of an inch into this good material, and then cut here however long this piece ends up being. So yeah. So at any rate, I'm not going to film any of that, just because, I mean, honestly, if I do, we'll end up with one whole video on just me trying to fix that little section there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and get that patched up, and then I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Well, we have been about 60% successful in patching this fender here, but the problem that I'm having is the parent material, the material on the body itself in this area, has been just beat to death. And so what's happening, we've got a hole here. This here is the material that I just, that I'm trying to splice in. This here is the parent material, and it's just blowing holes in this stuff. This whole area here, it's a lot stiffer than it was to begin with. So I think I'm going to have to do the unthinkable. And I think I'm probably going to have to get a little bit of body filler in here. That's not rust out spots. It's not, it's structurally, it's still okay. But my machine here just flat out won't get down to a low enough heat to go ahead and keep from blowing holes in the parent material. So we're going to go ahead and kind of shift gears here, and we're going to try to get the shovel bracket mounted. Now, the way we're going to do that is we're going to go ahead. We've drilled, we've drilled out the spot welds on this shovel bracket. And so we're going to go ahead and get it set on the body here, and we're going to try to plug weld that. Now, that being said, if we start having the same kind of problems, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bolt it on. It's not going to be correct. It's not going to look right, but it'll be on there. There's just, this material is just so bad, and I think it's probably because the fender had been worked a bunch to get it to where it was at. It must have been in pretty rough shape when the guy who restored this thing had it. So at any rate, we're going to go ahead and try getting the shovel bracket put on, and then we're going to call it a night. So we'll be back tomorrow, but first, let's see if we can get this shovel bracket on. Well, at least that was successful. We'll just clean it up, and we got a couple of little. I'm going to have to get in here with a little die grinder to clean that up. And down below, I'm probably not going to worry about it. Well, let's see how the shovel fits now. Alright, we may have to do a little bit of adjusting there, but that is a whole lot better than it was. We've got the strap that'll go, footman loop that'll go there, and then there's another one right here. Now I suspect that this footman loop, I'll have to look at some pictures of, and I'm going to go take a look at some of my other 151s. But I got a feeling that there's only supposed to be maybe, you know, let's check this out before I make an ass out of myself. Well, we're going to take a walk out here, and we are going to be really cautious out here now because it is rattlesnake season. The snakes are starting to come out. I killed one yesterday about 3 feet from where I've been working on Private Parts. Nope, that's supposed to have 2 of them there. Okay. So we're good. But at any rate, yeah, snakes are starting to come out, so we're going to have to start being careful. And watch what we're doing here. All right, folks, we're back. It's the next day. We're going to go ahead and start laying some color down. So we've already got the paint mixed. I'll show you what paint we're using here. This is the Gillespie Coatings. It's an enamel semi-gloss World War II green. The paint code number is 23070. This stuff you can get from Rapco. Which they are not sponsors. I'm not sponsored by them, so it just, you know, they're kind of the standard for military paints. So at any rate, without any further ado, let me show you what we're going to do here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the inside of the toolbox done, and then we're going to go ahead and you know, cut in all of the areas around the transmission you know, cover there. I want to get the footwells done, and we're going to be doing all of that with my small gun. And that's just to go ahead and because it's easier to get in and out and things like that. We're going to be laying 2 coats down. We're going to be doing 1 coat, and then we're going to be waiting for about 5 or 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops, and then we're going to be doing another coat. And we're going to try to get this done. We've got Private Parts kind of halfway in the shop and halfway out, and that's so that he's in the shade. Today it's supposed to be like 100 degrees outside. So sitting out in the sun, you know, the paint will end up baking before it, you know, when it gets onto the surface, and we don't want that. So we're going to be fighting with the wind a little bit today. You know, we'll just have to deal with that. So let's go ahead and get going on this before the wind gets too bad. Alright, first thing we're going to do is go over everything that we're going to be painting today with this wax and grease remover. Now, the reason why we want to get the inside done first is so that we're not having to drag hoses across freshly painted outside surfaces when we go to do the inside. So we're going to do the inside first. All right, we got a cup full of paint, and let's go ahead and make sure that everything is spraying good. And we need to adjust the nozzle here. That's not the one I want. There we go. All right, time for some color. We got paint mixed up in the big gun, so now it's time to get serious here. folks, so let's take a look and see how she looks here. I think it's looking pretty good. It's kind of nice having it all one color rather than two different shades of OD. A little bit of something right there. We may have to kind of go over them again. One final little touch up. Unfortunately, doing this stuff outside the way that I'm doing it, you know, especially with a little bit of wind, the wind kind of carries little bits of stuff. But if I were rich, I'd have a paint booth, huh? So in the video also will kind of serve to me as kind of a reference point so that I can see the spots that I've missed. I don't think I've missed anything here. So bottom line is that's it for today. We're going to be back probably on today is Friday. We'll be back on Sunday because tomorrow I got to go to Carson City and be gone all day. And honestly, Pvt Parts needs to set you know, for a day or so for this stuff to kind of start curing, and then you know, we'll be back to go ahead and do 2 coats. We're going to do 2 coats on the outside, and then once the 2 coats are done on the outside, we're going to leave. We're going to move some stuff around, pull Pvt Parts all the way inside the building, and then because we still have a ton of stuff to paint. We still have the hood to paint. We still have the grill, the battery cover, the transmission cover. And just a ton of other stuff. So at any rate, we'll see you in a couple of days. All right, folks, it's been a couple of days. We got to go ahead, and before we can put color on this thing, we've got to get these holes you know, that are blown through by welding onto really super thin material. We've got to get them fixed, and unfortunately this is how we got to fix them. So let's go ahead and get this stuff mixed up. First thing I got to do is clean these things off. And we're not going to need much. We're just going to dump a little bit. That hopefully will be enough. Hopefully this is mixed up well enough, and better for worse, that's what we got. I think I may have put a little bit too much of the hardener in because this stuff set up pretty quick. That's all right. I think that's all I need. We'll go ahead and sand it down here in a bit after this stuff sets up, and give it about a half an hour, I think, and then we'll see whether I filled the holes or not, see whether we got to do this again. All right, we've got our Bondo sanded down here, and I think that we've got the holes in there at least covered up. They're not fixed, they're just covered up. So we're going to hit this with a little bit of primer, see how it looks, and then decide whether we need to do any more work to it. All right, we'll let that dry and then see how it looks. All right, you can see we've got the little repaired area taken care of, with the exception of that one little bitty hole right there. So we're gonna get that puttied up, sanded back down, and then we'll reprime this. One of the reasons why I don't want to leave any little holes in there like that is that's a spot where water can get in, and eventually that stuff will crack out. It may eventually do it anyway, but you know, I want to give it as the best chance possible of surviving as long as possible. All right, folks, we're just about ready to start shooting some color. So let's take a look and see what we've got. So we did go back over and fix this area here. We don't have that little hole anymore. That looks much, much better. We went ahead and got these footman loops put back on. The little socket for the door jamb, and that other footman loop there. We've got the hood sanded down, so it's ready for paint. We've got the tail lights and the blackout blackout brake light. All that stuff is masked off and ready to go. Everything is pretty much cleaned up, and we did find one more little crack up in the front here that we had to squirt some Bondo on. So at any rate, we are ready, just about ready to put some paint down. So we're going to go ahead and start doing the, wiping everything down with the wax and grease remover, and then get ready to shoot some paint. Got paint in the gun. we're going to get started. We're going to start this way and kind of work our way around and then go to the hood. And just remember, we're going to be doing 2 coats. Alright folks, first coat is down. I'm not going to film the second coat because honestly it'll look just the same as the first coat. But what I will do is that once I get the gun cleaned up and everything kind of settled down, then we'll show you guys how he looks. Alright, we've got a good 2 coats on. We'll show you how he looks. No more tan taillight lenses. Now the paint doesn't really hide a lot of the body wrinkles, but that's okay. It is so nice to have this thing back on here now. And it's nice to have the slave receptacle the same color. And it's really nice not to have this in the fender anymore. Now when we did the wire cutter, I did it with a rattle can and it wasn't quite the same shade. So at any rate, there we go. We have got paint on the inside and the outside of Pvt Parts. Now, we're going to go ahead and call it quits for this video. But let me let you know what we got coming up. We have about 3 or 4 days before this paint is dried well enough to where I can get any kind of moisture on it or anything else. But when we get to the point where we can do this, we're going to get in here with the wheels off and hose out, pressure wash all of this stuff, pressure wash all the grease out and then grease off of here, and then wash the dirt off. And we're going to go do the inside of the fender wells. We're going to do and the suspension as well. You can see the rear suspension, you know, there's grease all over the grease and dirt all over the U-joints. I want to go ahead and get this all cleaned up and all the same color. Now we're not going to do the underside, but we are going to go ahead and do the inside of the fender wells. We may do the wheels, but I'm not sure about that. Those are a little bit darker color, it seems. So we may go ahead and end up doing those. But you know, like I said, this is a motor pool paint job. So we're not, we're trying to avoid runs and things like that. But as far as the the dents and dings and things like that, nah, we're not messing with any of that stuff. This is going to be like I said, a motor pool paint job. So any rate, what we have to do, and you guys will see this in the next video, is we've got the windshield frame to do. We've got the underside of the hood to do. Now, the reason why we went and did the top side of the hood today is that coat of paint needs to cure for about a week before we can put the stars and the registration numbers back on him. The stencils, the oil board stencils, I can start reapplying those in probably 3 or 4 days by this weekend. And so we're going to have, we have an awful lot of stuff to continue painting. Battery box cover, the bows that are out over there, the underside of the hood, the windshield frame, like I'd said, the grill, we still have to prep the grill, the seat frames. Those are going to be kind of a last thing. If the seat frames get painted, they do, and if they don't, they don't. But I have the antenna bracket that goes here. We've got the radio mount that goes here. All that needs to be painted, and so I'm going to be working on that, and that you guys will see that in the next video. You'll also see, we'll start reassembling some things too. So any rate, thanks again for watching. Please remember, like, share, and subscribe. It really, and leave a comment. It really does help the channel. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get this channel so it is somewhat self-supporting. Right now, honestly, it's a money pit, which I don't mind making videos for you guys. I enjoy it, but the quality, could be better. A lot more interesting things if I had a little bit better funding. So at any rate, just like I said, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm not asking any of you guys for money. So please don't take this as a plea for money, because I don't do that. At any rate, like I said, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment, and we'll see you on the next one.